What's up, guys? My name's Brad, and today we're going to review my 2016 Ford Mustang. It's a Shelby GT350, and it is highly modified. We're talking about 8,250 flat plane crank RPMs, an ear-crushing 5.2 liter V8 exhaust, a speed-sensitive active carbon fiber wing, a fully built Magnum XL manual 6-speed racing transmission. This thing is terrifying and head-turning to drive every single time I get in it. I bought this car with 34,000 miles on it, and I only paid $39,400. And the reason was this thing's been in an accident, had the airbag light on it when I bought it, and the motor was smoking, and we had no idea what we were getting into. It could have been blown up at that point for all we knew. I was actually looking for the cheapest GT350 I could buy because I didn't care it had the accident. I knew the only thing on this car that's not going to change is some of the interior, some of the body panels, and the Voodoo motor, but I thought it may even have to be rebuilt. Everything else on this car has been changed. Today we're doing a full review, front to back, every single mod that's been added to this car, all the driving features, how it feels out on the road, how it performs, and hey, you either love it or you hate it. It's very polarizing because of the wrap job that we did on it, because of the ridiculous almost $6,000 wing on the back. Do you like it? Do you not? At first look, let me know down in the comments. I'm also going to tell you the cost of every mod that went on this vehicle, that total value. I've got a hint for you. The total value of mods is more than what this car cost new in 2016. I've got a Fat House Performance 800R package with a Whipple supercharger, and the most, probably more ridiculous than the supercharger, I've got a Tremec Magnum XL transmission swap with a $5,000 clutch. You're looking at somewhere right at 20 grand to put that transmission in this vehicle. Yes, that is a little bit of heresy to take the GT350's legendary Tremec 6-speed and pull it out of the car, but that's exactly what we did. Now, a lot of people would say that 800 wheel horsepower in a Mustang is not a lot of power, and you're not wrong if you're talking about a drag race build. But this is not a drag race build. This car was specifically built, tailor built, to drive the back roads of Tennessee, all the curvies, all the hills, the dragging, all up in the Smokies. That's what this was made for, not the track, not the drag strip. And that's why we went with the 800 horsepower Whipple supercharger instead of what Fat House is pretty famous for with their twin turbo 11, 12, 1300 horsepower builds. This is custom built just for the back roads. Now I've got to talk about what makes the Shelby GT350 special. More special than any other Mustang that's ever been made, and there's been a lot of special Mustangs. Guys, it's the 5.2 liter flat plane crank Voodoo motor. Your typical Mustang GT comes with a 5.0 Coyote. That's a cross plane crank, doesn't rev as high. This bad boy revs all the way up to 8,250 RPMs. It gives a unique sound that no other Mustang has ever had. Let me just show you what it sounds like. Fat House really does one of the best jobs in the entire Mustang fabrication industry at having special parts made to make this entire install look special. Obviously the Whipple supercharger is what it is, and you can get it in about any other color, but I opted in this package for the valve covers from Fat House that are custom, their overflow coolant tank, which replaces the big ugly plastic bottle that just doesn't look real good. Obviously comes with the intake. It's just a super clean install. While I was at Fat House, they were able to fix everything that this high of a mileage car needed fixed. They did a couple upgrades in the motor, like billet crank gears and sprocket, just to make sure we're able to hold the power for a long time. I had a AC condenser and a couple other things that had to be repaired, and I just had them do that while they had the entire front clip off of the motor. The GT350 when stock is advertised as 526 horsepower, but when you put it on a dyno, only 494 gets to the rear wheels. A GT500 advertised at 760 horsepower only puts 670 horsepower to the rear wheels. This 800R puts 800 horsepower to the rear wheels. Told you this car was built for the back roads, and that's exactly where we are right now. And the further we drive, the further we'll get away from civilization, and that's exactly like I like it. So I've got a couple cameras set up here, the 360 camera, the exhaust camera, just to give you guys a true feel of what it feels like to rip in this car. Now the GT350 non-modified, just stock, is an awesome drive, but without all this suspension, I don't think you can handle these curves like you can with all this extra BMR stuff. And then you add the Aero, you get a little bit more suction down to the road, but we're trying to overcome this ridiculous amount of power. We almost doubled the power that we're actually putting down to the ground. I'm going to show you how the brakes work as well, kind of in a more extreme case here. About to hit a big long straight. We've got some traffic. The further we get out, the less we'll have. So as I mentioned, this thing doesn't have to be shifted until 8,250. It sounds really manic right now. We're at 3,500 RPMs and just a touch over something with a 9 on it on the speedometer. So I'll downshift here. Then we'll overtake. Oh man. And you can see how far that wing tips down, and that was something with a 1 in front of it on the speedometer, for those of you counting at home. And the wing is at this extreme angle, and then I'm going to go into a brake right here, full-blown brake, and you can see the air brake just flips down as hard as it can, and it actually assists. And there we go, back to flat. That assists us in being able to stop, because that puts, I think it's somewhere over 2,000 pounds of downforce in the rear. So right now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, we're a little unbalanced. We need more aero up front to be able to counteract how much we have in the back. So we got a few more carbon pieces. At the end of the day, we may be a little unbalanced. We'll keep going. I'll keep adding stuff to make this a better back road driver, because this is literally 2 minutes from my house in any direction. So this is the purpose-built weapon for back roads. These roads do get very narrow, so you've got to be able to brake hard to be able to let a tractor or truck or whatever. A lot of people would say this is extremely dangerous. You'd probably be right. Lots of hidden driveways, 15 mile per hour curve signs. Let's go down here. The traction control off, you can get a little, you do have really sticky tires obviously, but you can get a little back end slide around a curve like that. See, I should shift if I'm going by the way this sounds, but I'm only at 5,000 RPM, so I can literally, I mean, that's 7 right there. I've got another 150 RPMs to go. So you can just stay in this thing so much longer. There's 7,000, I'll shift. So I've got a little straight here, and we'll go back down. Let's rip up this little back road. Hope we don't meet somebody else. Pavement's really bad, but if I remember correctly, this is very curvy, very straight uphill, lots of switchbacks. I do have this in track mode, so our Magnaride suspension actually tightens up and gives us a little extra grip and takes some of the sway out of all the suspension, so that we hook the ground a little bit better. It's not very comfortable obviously on just a normal comfort drive, but it's not what we're doing. I never really do that in this car. There's not a whole lot of cruising going on, because this is very, very bumpy, but it's still chewing it up pretty good. This is barely over a lane width, so you really got to look ahead, or I've got to look ahead to be able to see what's coming up. This thing just sticks. I mean, we're talking about all the horsepower, all the torque, and we just don't have trouble being able to put it down. Blind hill, I think I'm not going to jump this. I could go Dukes of Hazzard style, but I'd like to make another video after this one. You hear all that rattling? I don't know if it's coming through on the camera. That is the shifter. Like I mentioned, this transmission is a race transmission, and the way it fits in the 350, it leaves most of the vibration from the motor through the transmission and into your hand. So it's moving quite a bit. The ball is firm, but it's still got a ton of vibration coming through it. For a while I wanted to fix that, and the more I thought about it, it actually feels pretty cool. It's the most engaging car I've ever driven, and that's including a Huracan, Lamborghini, a couple different Ferraris, all that stuff you can drive on a track day for a couple $100 for a few laps. This is way more engaging. I will say too, the flat top steering wheel in this big thick piece of carbon fiber does make this feel extremely good to hold on to. I don't feel like I'm having trouble. When we just hit that bump back there, the Magnaride and all the suspension was back on the pavement, had it grabbed in half a second. So it's just, guys, it's the ultimate back road driving experience, because I can romp this thing as hard as I want. I can stop as fast as I need to, barring hitting a patch of gravel or something. I'm coming up to a stop sign, so I'm going to go 65, and I'm just going to lock it down. And that's those Paget racing pads, the racing rotors, the high performance brake fluid. I don't even think I mentioned that earlier. This car will do it all on the back road, and I'm tickled to death to show it to you guys. Underneath the car, you're going to see some stuff that you don't typically get to see on these builds. There's a lot of money spent down here. There's probably going to be more money spent down here, and I'll point out both of those. So I'm going to start with the long tube Stainlessworks headers. These are special. They're better than what comes stock, even on a Shelby GT350 and a GT500. It really opens the sound up. It really opens the flow up, and that's how we're able to get to it's one of the ways we're able to get to 800 rear wheel horsepower so easy with this build, with this Whipple. It does retain catalytic converters. You got a GESI or GESI, however you want to say it, high flow, high performance catalytic converter. If we go with a higher horsepower build later, we may have to upgrade that again. Behind the GESI Cats, everything is stock. So you're going to retain this factory GT350 X pipe. We retain the factory GT350 resonators. If we add a Corsa X pipe here, it's going to be even louder. It's going to crack even harder. But right now, I think you'll agree the sound's pretty perfect to be able to drive this in normal civilization and not be outcast. We do have the same stock mufflers in the back that the car came with, but we did install something. I'm going to show it to you right now. So back at the muffler in the wiring, that's where the electronic valve that actually opens up for loud mode or quiet mode. A lot of cars have that now. This in quiet mode with this much power starts to break that valve, that baffle, and it starts to rattle and sound terrible. We know that from former cars. I had a 2020 350 that we also went too far on the exhaust with. So we've installed the Bryn Speed mod, and it actually makes this stay in loud mode all the time, because why not? Back up at the front, we've got that very expensive T56 Magnum swap, and that is a level 6. And I can't even tell you, all I know that is a couple more $1,000 for high performance, expensive titanium, carbon, rare earth metal parts that are in this bad boy that makes it able to handle the power, and it shifts perfectly. It's basically a race, it is a race transmission. And I have that in my $39,000 GT350. It is wicked. It does change the shift pattern just a little bit for where reverse is. We'll look at that when we're inside the car. I've got my Fat House Performance owner's manual here, and I forgot to tell you something about the transmission. So we were going to just upgrade the factory Tremec 6-speed when we and put like a $3,000 clutch in it. But when we went with the race transmission, we've got a $5,500 for all the little things they had to do. There's like an upgraded slave cylinder. There's stuff I don't even know about, guys. I just pay the bill. An RPS triple disc carbon clutch, and it makes it hold all the power, even the power we're going to throw at it in the future. Behind that transmission, I've got a QA1 carbon fiber drive shaft, and I think it's really cool because it's this blue weave. I know that doesn't matter in the realm of having a carbon fiber drive shaft, but it holds up, handles all the power. It looks really cool, and I can say I have a carbon fiber drive shaft. Behind that, it gets even more interesting because we actually changed the rear gearing, which is in this rear diff, to a 409. That's not the factory gears that came in this. They're stronger and they're a different ratio. Coming out of the rear diff are these G-force high horsepower axles. They help hold all the power and get it all to the ground without snapping anything. I know 800 wheels not that much, and you guys are going to try to roll me in the comments, but if we build this motor and twin turbo it, this is something that won't have to be done. Plus, it's more better up front. This car was fairly base in stock form, so I didn't have what they call the tech package then, which gave me which would have given me a transmission cooler and a rear diff cooler. That was a very expensive thing to upgrade. I got $5 or $6 grand in that because that's intercoolers up front. It's lines running all the way to the back. I think there's even an intercooler in the back at the rear diff. So a lot goes into that, but all this stuff will run for hours and hours on the back roads without overheating any of these expensive parts we've installed. Now, because this is a back road car or a track car, some people say track, I'm gonna call it back road. I do have a lot of BMR suspension upgrades. It's a pretty long list. I know I've got lowering springs, and BMR seemed to have the best. I don't know what you want to call it, but it felt like it was smooth on every review we saw, instead of having a point where the car would load down and then it would pop on down. This was like the most linear bounce that you could get and the most linear suspension. But I'll show you a few of these parts we've got. We've got vertical links, bearing kit for the lower control arms and the rear standard, cradle bushing lockout kit. You got some Ford Performance parts. I don't even know all this stuff. The knuckle to toe link bearing assemblies. So all the suspension stuff that we could get for this type of build, and we'll call this phase 1. There'll probably be a phase 2 on suspension at some point, especially as we continue to add all this different aero to the car. For the brake upgrades, we did gyro slotted rotors front and back, save a little weight. They obviously stop a little bit better. Also got Paget racing pads up underneath these factory calipers that we actually painted grabber blue. I love grabber blue. We went grabber blue because I wanted to accent the entire car with that. I think it looks killer with avalanche being that off-white gravel looking color. I think it's just a nice pop, and I think red for brake calipers is really cool, but this car needed something special. This thing is pretty hard to launch from a dead stop. I'm not the most experienced manual driver, and because these rear gears were changed to, like, I think it's 408 or whatever I said earlier, it's extremely jumpy off the line. You want to be able to keep that traction down, but if you just drop the clutch and hammer it with traction control off, you're going to spin a little bit unless it's extremely warm and everything's warmed up really good. But when I'm in, you know, second gear doing 60 at 6,000 RPMs, and I stop it, I'm to 8,000 RPMs and 80 miles an hour, and what was that, you know, half a second? So the pickup is unreal, or whatever you want to call that. It's almost like a launch from 60 because this thing's geared so stinking low, and then the power's just there on demand. So we're at 40, 50, that's all you want, baby. 8,250 right there. At about 100 miles an hour. I meant something with the 1 in front of it. Guys, if you like this style of video and you want to support our channel, make sure you hit thumbs up below and hit subscribe. We do this for fun, but we don't do it for free. Help us out. On the exterior, let's start with the wrap. Probably the most controversial part of the car. This is kind of a copy, but an upgrade Backroad version of the GT4 GT350 race car. It has the Ford Performance look to it, but not in the regular Ford Performance colors. It's in my own grabber blue flavor. And then obviously on these stripes, we did something way offbeat and didn't go with the normal Shelby stripes, which I absolutely love, but I wanted to put a little Backroad flair in those stripes. And our wrap guys can do some amazing stuff. It's Epic Designs, and they actually did a printed pattern. When you back up from the car, you don't notice the bolts in the stripes. When you get up close, you can tell there's something going on, and it just makes it a lot more personal for our vehicle. That's why this looks like a race car. We got to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is this ridiculous 70-inch Victor Racing PS100 active foil wang. You can't call it a wing. Guys, this is the biggest wing you can get for a Mustang, and it also, I think, is the only one to date that will actually move. It has a gyrometer, GPS monitor, and it actually knows how fast the car is going when you're going down the road. It has a couple unique features that are different to this than a standard wing, and that is that we have this timed to cut down and add resistance at different speeds. It will also air brake, so when we slam on the brakes, the wing will turn down to an extreme angle and help the car actually slow down. But one of the coolest things is above 130 miles an hour, I think that's what we've got it set to, the wing will go flat like you see it right now, and it will only produce 2% of the actual drag that it can produce at 100% drag. You can go 200 miles an hour with this wing on, and you can't do that in a normal race car when the wing is tipped down and it's locked in, and you get up to top speed and it's actually like pulling 50 or 60 miles an hour off of what you could do on the top end. This wing allows you to have your cake and eat it too, and it's not cheap. And install was terrible. It was really, really hard. It recommends professional, but we just had Sam behind the camera do it. I guess he's professional now, because the install took a lot of hours with a lot of planning and a lot of prep, because we had to drill into the car and kind of permanently change what this thing is. We replaced the factory GT350 Mustang wheels with Stark forged custom two-piece wheels, saved a little weight, got a little custom look because we got to pick all the finishes and where all the cuts went and how the face looked on this actual wheel. I think it's awesome. Let me know what you think down in the comments. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it definitely gives this car a very unique look. The splitter to add additional downforce is APR Racing. It does stick out pretty far. A lot of people have done these on their GT350s. We do have it installed pretty aggressively. You got to have as much downforce added in the front as you have in the rear, and we've added a lot in the rear. We're probably underdone up front, but we do have canards coming in carbon fiber that go right here that'll add additional downforce on the front. I would call the lighting upgrade pretty substantial. They're not custom, but you don't see them every day. All those lights light up, all those white bars. And then for the marker lights down low, those are usually orange or amber, whatever you want to call it. Ours are black with an LED strip behind them, so they still light up orange in the way that they need to, but they don't stick out real bad when you see the car coming down the road. In the back, I went with the Euro clear tail lights. They actually have the sequential in them as well. I could have went with smoked and it tied in with this back maybe a little bit better, but we thought the clear with this white behind it looked better in contrast with the Avalanche color. So full lighting upgrade. And I almost forgot to mention, down here, you'll see this in the videos, that is an F1 light. It actually blinks when you put your brakes on, so somebody behind you on a back road knows that you're slamming them on, and it's got a really cool LED red strip in it as well. For tires, we upgraded to a Toyo Proxus R888R. We actually tried to not have this sticky of a tire when we first got it back from Fat House, and it was just a handful. But even on a cooler day, these are okay. They obviously do better in the hot summer when you get them warmed up really good, but this is the best tire that you can put on a high horsepower Mustang in our opinion. Inside, guys, what can I say? It's a Mustang. Now we do have something unique in that this is the comfort package car, not your race seats with Recaros that are all manual. I actually have some buttons down here. There are a lot of manual things about the interior, but the seats actually have what I would say is my favorite feature on the entire car, and that is cooled seats. So with it being a basic Mustang interior, The things we upgraded would be this carbon fiber steering wheel with the flat top, flat bottom. Just a nice punch. You do get a Cobra on the GT350, so this is the stock centerpiece here. And then the other thing is we wanted to match up and go carbon across, so we've got some carbon pop-on pieces here in the interior just to make it feel a little more special. And then this T56 Magnum came with this black ball shifter, and if you've got a 350, you'll recognize that you don't pull up on this one and go over and up for reverse. It's actually just over and to the right instead of over and to the left, but it feels really good in your hand. And you got a slide upgraded here, but because I don't have those Recaro race seats, I do get my AC because I stay hot all the time. As promised, let's talk about the money. So I bought the car, obviously inexpensive, $39,400. The mods are pretty staggering. It's $76,500. And honey, I hope you're not watching this, because that is more than this car cost when it was brand new in stock form in 2016. So guys, I've got over $116,000 in this build. Let me put that in perspective for you. I've owned a 2020 GT350. I've owned a 2020 GT500. I don't anymore. I got rid of both of them and bought this car and improved everything I thought needed to be better, because I think this is a better car than a GT500 because you get the sickest manual. When you drive this car and then you jump out and get into something else, you feel like you're not even driving. You feel like you have nothing to do. Everything about the experience in this car and how you feel when you drive it, which is going away as our country goes electric. This is the most engaged that you can possibly be driving a car. So what's the market value of something like this? I mean, I'm not going to sell it, so I can't tell you what somebody would actually give for this. I want to know from you guys, what do you think this car is actually worth if I were to sell it and somebody were to hand me their cold hard cash right now? Put that down in the comments. Also, let me know what you think about the build. You're not going to hurt my feelings because I don't care. It's my car. I'm going to keep it forever. But I do enjoy seeing your feedback and seeing what you like and don't like about the build. If you're like me and you spend entirely too much money on cars in general, especially mods, guys, go ahead and hit subscribe and let me know what you think about this particular build. What do you love? What do you hate? Down in the comments. I love to read those.